Hey, everybody.
Hello.
I assume that was Thomas.
Yes,
Hello.
I'm here.
And John, are you there?
Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, Sergey. Is that Nick? Am I remembering correctly?
Yes, that's me.
Ah, excellent. It takes me a while, but I eventually get there.
That's really quick.
Yeah. Hello, Clemens.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. It's it was just a normal cold yesterday.
Oh, good.
Nothing to really worry about.
That's good. I kind of assumed it wasn't anything too serious. So.
No, it wasn't. But I'm given my advanced age, I thought I would take a little break.
That is true. You are kind of old. I agree.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So are you.
I wasn't going to go there, but yeah. Yes. As my body reminds me on a near daily basis.
Yes. No, but usually, and working from home, since that's the norm for me, I'm basically never sick unless I'm really at the hospital and have surgery. But otherwise, I'm just, But given the time and age and everything, I decided to literally take 3 days off.
Yeah, this guy's probably smart. Yeah. Hey, Tommy.
Hi.
Hey. And Christoph.
Hi.
Christoph, you there?
Yes, sorry, can you hear me?
There we go. Yeah, I got you now. Cool.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Sorry, it's Sergey. I had issues with my microphone. Sorry.
No worries. I got you. Thank you. Yeah, I guess in this day where most people are doing video conferencing now, it's hard to tell whether when something's going wrong, it's because you forgot to unmute, or it's a problem with your laptop, or a problem with the WebEx system itself, or the the VC system itself. It's too many things to go wrong in that thread.
We're no longer special here.
Yeah. Hey, Falco. Falco, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, Doc.
Hello. Hello. And Mark?
Hey, Doc.
Hello. Ray. Oh, no microphone yet. Oops. All right. The other Thomas, are you there? Thomas Sheena?
Yep, I'm here.
Yep. All right, cool. And Ray, you there yet?
I am here.
Excellent. Thank you. Vinay, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. Thanks for the PR, by the way.
Sure, thank you.
Yep. Oh, Mike, you there?
Morning.
Morning.
I'm here.
Yep. Right. So just give another couple minutes. You guys are really early today.
Doug. Hey, Doug, how's the Raleigh areas faring here in the virus climate?
It would help if I come off mute. As far as I know, everything seems to be going okay. I mean, you know, with everybody at home, it's hard to know exactly how bad it is other than what you may hear on the news. And the news doesn't sound, you know, that bad. We occasionally hear about stuff, but, you know, I mean, there's still food in the grocery stores, not necessarily everything, but
Hello,
it's
people.
still, it doesn't seem too bad.
That's great.
Yeah, what's it like at your spot?
About the same, although we had a little flare up at the very beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I was hearing something on the news yesterday. Was saying that I can't remember if they were talking specifically about Seattle or just Washington in general, where it seemed like their curve was either had plateaued or it starting to go down or something like that because it wasn't making the news as much anymore after that nursing home.
Yeah, we stopped testing.
Well, that'll do it too.
It's the growth is slowing. We're not on the backside of the curve yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, our number of increases it matches the rate of testing. So we're out of tests.
Okay. All right, let's get back to the excitement of the roll call. Colin, you there?
Good morning.
Good morning. And Eric?
Good morning.
Good morning. Ginger?
I'm here. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning. Kent Richmond. I believe you might be new. Are you there? Kent?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha. Do me a favor.
Yep.
Either in the Zoom chat or on the agenda itself, just add the company you're associated with if you want to be associated with the company. If not, I'll just mark you as a loaner.
Yeah, I'm with Google, but I can add that. Yep.
Oh, cool. Never mind. I can spell Google. Okay.
All right. Can you, Doug?
I don't know. Sometimes it's questionable, but yeah, this is the dangerous part about me sharing my screen is you get to see all my wonderful typing errors, and it's scary. All right.
Hey, Doug,
Klaus,
do you want me to Google the spelling of that?
please.
I'm here.
More Mark humor. I love it. Okay, let's get on to the fun stuff. Okay, Klaus, you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, Lance, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Manoj, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm shadowing Ryan.
Okay, if you could put your company name there, I'd appreciate it.
Will you?
Go ahead and spell that for me. we just got through my poor spelling. I'm not even going to risk that.
Sure.
Let's see. Who else? R-I-P-I-E-N-E-A-R. Are you there?
I'm here. Roland Pinar. I'm with Sanadia.
Okay, let me get you add your company name in there as well, please. Ryan, are you there?
I am, yes.
Excellent, thank you. And what about Dustin?
Yep, hello.
Hello. And Slinky Developer, you there?
Here I am.
Yeah, you are. All right, I think I might have everybody. Did I miss anybody before we jump into the fun? Oh, there's somebody with DI.
Hi.
Oh, that's Dustin, probably. Oh, Manuel, got it. Okay. Anybody else? All right, let's jump into it. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. All right, status. We have no action items outstanding. Isn't that exciting? Woohoo. All right, community time. Anything from the community people want to bring up that is not on the agenda? Thomas.
Yeah, thank you. So it's only my second call, so apologies if that has been discussed before. I was wondering about the versioning of the cloud event extensions.
What in particular? Just how do we do versioning in general?
The cloud events themselves, they are on version 1.0 right now. But I guess the extensions, they come in as they are documented. So are they associated with version 1 immediately, or do they go to the next version, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, a much easier answer. We don't version them at all. That's meant to basically be a more like a wiki page more than anything else, in the sense that anybody can add an extension to the list as long as it adheres to whatever criteria we have, if we even have any, and they can get updated at any time. It's just a spot for people to put things to share with the rest of the community, and they have no official standing whatsoever. That's why they're not versioned, and that's why they could also vanish at any point in time as well. Does that help?
Okay. Yep, thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you for the question. And Vinay?
So, hi, Doug, thanks. So the PR, my first PR that I submitted, how is that addressed? Is it, do we bring it up here, or is it just get, looked at as and when people get some cycles?
Okay, good question, because it's been a while and we have a lot of newcomers. So normally what happens is new PRs or PRs that go through a significant change have to be updated or created by about Tuesday evening. That way people have at least 2 days to review it before this phone call. If they're updated in a shorter window than that, then we may bring it up on this call, but we're not going to do any kind of official vote on it because people need more time to review it. Okay, so that's part of the process. So for your particular PR, since you just opened that today, if we have time at the end of the call, we can bring it up if you want, just to draw people's attention to it, but we won't technically get to a review process until next Thursday's call, with the hopes that during the week between now and next Thursday, people will review it offline and you'll be able to make comments, because it would be kind of mean for people to wait until next Thursday's phone call to mention a whole bunch of nitpicky things when you could have made those edits, before Tuesday. Does that help?
Totally works. Thank you.
Okay, yep, thanks for the question. All right, anything else for the community?
Do we talk today about the HTTP multi-part binding? Because I don't see it in the agenda.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I wasn't sure how you wanted to proceed on that, because I think all three of those are tagged as still a work in progress. And normally we won't bring up pull requests on the phone call unless they're basically ready to go, because we're usually short on time with just a 1 hour. And that's why I brought them up on last week's call, because I knew we'd have extra time to talk about those. So how would you like to proceed on those? Do you want to wait until you get more comments and you can remove the work in progress status from them?
No.
Do you want to force a discussion on the phone calls when we have extra time? How would you like to proceed?
So I want to proceed first, having trying to create a draft implementation, because if without an implementation, we are not sure where we are going, honestly. So I want to first try to implement it, and I want to present an implementation, show how it works, and if people likes how it works, I can go through the spec and fix it. But I think that depends also on the fact that we want to have this in another optional HTTP multiple events binding, because that's something that a lot of people talked about last week. So that's something that should be, I think, should be discussed. I don't know. You should tell me.
Okay. So let me ask you this. You have 3 different PRs open. Are you hoping that all 3 go forward, or are you hoping to condense them down into 1 or just 2?
So the the 2 multi-parts can be merged in 1. Okay. While the other one is different. The other one needs different handling because it needs another implementation. It's a different matter, honestly.
Okay. Well, what if we do this? What if we periodically remind people on this phone call about the PRs out there, just so you can get some initial feedback? But then as you get closer to feeling that your implementation is good enough for people to actually start playing with it, why don't we, at that point, point people to the implementation, and then we can raise the PR issue back up to the forefront and possibly put it on the agenda for a more formal discussion. How does that sound?
That's fine for me. So, but one practical question. Should I close these PRs and create a new one with a new HTTP multi-part binding spec? Because that's, or we want to talk about this later?
That's up to you guys. What do you guys want to do? Mike, your hands up.
Yeah, so I had sort of a meta question about this, and this is like, why is HTTP2 multiplexing not sufficient? Like, why do we need to invent a new encoding?
So
I think
just a process, just a process thing. Would you, okay, Mike, in that question to the PR itself?
Oh, I already have.
Oh, okay. Okay, because I'd rather not dive into a deep discussion about that PR here, only because that's not the normal process we follow. I was okay with bringing it up just to draw people's attention to it. So Francesco, relative to your question about merging the stuff, because I get the sense it may not be a quick answer, even though I asked for the group's feedback. Maybe you should take that to the PR itself and ask what people want to do there in terms of merging it into one, or keep them separate.
Okay, it's fine.
Okay. Okay. I mean, obviously, if we have time at the end of the call, we could circle back around. It's just I want to make sure we get to the things that are definitely things that we should get to, like PRs that are ready to go, kind of stuff. If that's okay.
Yeah, of course, no problem.
Okay. Cool. All right. Anything else for the community time? Okay. Next up, SDK call. I don't think we have anything to discuss there, but we do have a call after this one. So stick on the line if you guys want to join that. Timur, I don't see him online. No, he's not online. So I don't think there's anything update from the workflow group. I thought there was something I was going to say though. No, I don't think there's anything to say. Okay. KubeCon. So hopefully everybody knows that they've rescheduled it for August 13th through the 16th, which is over a weekend, which is going to be interesting. My question for you guys is, do we want to still plan on having a face-to-face meeting there? I know a lot of that is going to be dependent on how many people actually plan on going, and I suspect most people don't know for sure yet, but let me ask a general question. If it looks like the virus stuff is, you know, tapering off and people are starting to travel again, do most people think that they will be attending the conference?
If it's happening, then I could potentially go, or I will likely go since it's close for me. But I think this is optimistic.
Okay, I'm hearing a whole bunch of either on the fences or no's in the chat.
Maybe it's just too early to say right now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We'll tell you what. Since I would hate to say no to those folks and then lose the room, let me go ahead and say yes. And I'll make sure they understand that we may end up dropping it, but at least then we'll have the room available if it turns out a whole bunch of people do go.
Yeah.
So okay, I'll just hold on to the room. Okay.
I mean, on the speculation that they're having the conference, then we should go just speculate with them and say, all right. So if you think we're going to have it, we think we're going to have it face to face.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Good golly. Okay. Yep. Okay. We'll do. Thank you, everybody. All right, charter. First up, as I mentioned, I believe last week, we were working on a charter and I made it available. Hopefully everybody saw the emails that went out about it. I did get some review comments. Thank you for everybody that did that. In terms of process, I believe the next step is for me to open up a pull request to the TOC to formally request the new SIG get created. And at that point in time, I'm sure they'll have lots of commentary about the charter. So do not assume that this is the final version. I suspect it will get changed based upon feedback we get from people. Having said that though, hopefully people had a chance to review it. And if you had any major issues, you would have already raised it. And so I'm hoping everybody on this call basically says, yep, it's okay to send the PR. But let me just ask the formal question. Is there any concern about the general direction of the PR that would warrant it holding off? I'm sorry, any concern with the charter as proposed that would warrant it not getting PR'd relatively soon? Because obviously some minor things can be adjusted later through the normal PR process. Anybody have any concerns with what's in there today?
I'm not sure the serverless working, the go back. Can you scroll back down? What's it called? The serverless workflow, spelled wrong. I'm not sure we want to include that yet.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I kept looking at thinking, where is it misspelled? Okay, yeah, it's missing an F. Thank you.
Why do you say that?
Yeah, go ahead.
It seems like a prototype that's been specified instead of an incremental step from cloud events.
But don't you think that would be considered within scope of the SIG to be able to look at that and make policy decisions off of it?
I don't know.
I mean, it's not saying it's not an endorsement per se, but it'd be within the scope of.
Yeah, I mean, because technically that project could just die, right? If it doesn't get traction and people don't like it.
Okay.
But I mean, but that's the question for you, Scott, though, is do you not consider workflow in general to be within scope?
I think it's too soon to even think about workflow.
That's kind of an interesting.
We don't even talk about like protocol life cycles.
Well, it's kind of an interesting statement, though, right? Because the entire reason they got started was because the serverless working group thought it was a worthy topic within scope of serverless in general, right?
I don't know. I think, you know, like maybe a first pass would be stateful serverless instead of workflows. And then you could build onto that. You can use stateful serverless and cloud events to generate workflows.
How about, let me ask this question. Would you say that workflows would be within scope if we were working on it, you know, months or years from now?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in a roadmap that gets evolved into. Okay. But to go like if this group is focused on cloud events and then straight to workflow, there isn't a connection there, right? There needs to be some more foundational things that we can.
So maybe this needs to be a bulleted list, because this is just talking about things that are in scope, not necessarily endorsements.
Would that alleviate at least some of your concerns, Scott? That this made it as a bullet, as a numbered list, it made it look a little too official, like we're endorsing things, as opposed to just these are just some ideas.
Yeah, can we add the 6 other things we had at the when we were doing the voting session too?
Well,
like this is what we might look at.
Problem is, it's list the current projects.
Oh, current projects. I see.
Yeah.
Okay, I like the bullet list. It's fine.
Okay. Because I do think Mark is right that this isn't actually endorsing anything, other than to say yes, okay, this group is doing some work in this space.
Got it.
Okay.
Since this is about projects, Tiomir opened a TOC pull request for serverless workflow to become a project. Is the discovery API and the subscription API going to be its own project, or is this going to stay within cloud events?
Yeah, so we already have the PR for this one, so we don't need to worry about that one. These two, as of right now, correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, but I think our current agreement was, as of right now, we're going to keep them under the cloud events project. And at some point in the future, if we think either they deserve their own project or they get too big to be under one umbrella, then we were going to think about splitting it out. But we didn't want to make that decision prematurely, is the way I remember the discussion going. Is my memory incorrect, anybody?
Just another perspective on that, not directly answering your question, but seems like those are 2 core pieces to the cloud events capability that maybe it warrants their own projects. There is the potential for them to really grow and be independent.
Right. Right. That's the point, right? We don't know how they're going to grow, and we didn't want to prematurely ask for them to be standalone projects. Because, for example, we may look at discovery and subscription and say, you know what, we were wrong. These are horrible ideas, right? And drop the entire idea as we're working through the spec. And we didn't want to ask for the CNCF to accept us as sandbox projects, as standalone sandbox projects, until we had some more history behind them, I think.
Fair.
Okay, so John, thank you for the correct statement in there. So, okay, anything else? Okay, as I said, don't assume this is written in stone. We can still make edits to this through the normal PR process, but I will now move forward with PRing this to the TOC and trying to get on their agenda. I suspect I have to put together at least a slide or two presentation on this. When I get that ready, I'll share it with you folks so you could review it. I don't expect it to be very large or anything like that, but I will want your feedback. Okay, any other questions on that before we move on?
Sorry, I had a question, Doug. You said there were some emails that went out. Sorry, I didn't get any email on this. Was this prior to like 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, or?
No. There are two different mailing lists that I may have sent it to. I can't remember which one or both. There's a serverless working group mailing list as well as a cloud events mailing list. You need to make sure you subscribe to those.
Okay.
Yeah. Look at the README for our repos. Somewhere in there it lists out the mailing list, and you can subscribe to there.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Yep. Let's see, where was I? Okay, so draft subscription. So, Clemens, you were not on the call last week. Where was it? And we conditionally approved your changes. Yep.
Yeah,
I
read that.
Yep. So we are just waiting. Oh, it's already done. Never mind. Okay. Has anybody changed their mind? I think Clemens did address pretty much all the comments in there.
Yeah,
so
I left a few open, and that is so one of the unfortunate parts of the Open API of Open API per se is that it is biased towards the path, and that's where you anchor everything. So I need to go. So there was desire expressed to also have the ID in the path for the get operation, and I'm indifferent whether that's a query string or whether it's in the path. But because I'm indifferent, I don't think having the ID in the query string is worse than having it in the path. I think both of those are just options that are okay. So I will have to go do a little refactoring to go and effectively factor out the operation per se, and then hook that up into two places. So I haven't done that part, but I don't want to prescribe the one or the other way. And as I said in my in this comment in particular, having question mark ID equals 1 or subscription / ID is one is more restful than the other, and I don't want to be prescriptive either way. So I'm going to go and make the document allow both of those.
Okay, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't believe this is a blocking discussion point, right? We can discuss this later in another issue / PR kind of a thing.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I haven't had a chance to look at your response, Clemens, so I'll try to do that today.
Okay, and then so that is I think that's a substantial open point, and then yeah, there was another discussion, and the other substantial change that I made was that we called the filter syntax simple. There was an objection to simple and the connotation that it's simplicity, the simplicity connotation. So I just changed it to basic now. I hope that's a little bit more palatable than simple, because I get that. I tend to agree with simple having this connotation of it being necessarily very easy to understand, and that's not always the case. So I just called that basic. And then there was this exact underscore match. Yeah, not here, but kind of further down. There was I think that's where the type was. The type must be one of the following.
Wasn't it up here? It used to be up here, right?
No. That was in the next section.
Oh, sorry.
The type was, it was type prefix underscore match and exact underscore match, and you had actually had the subject. No, it was a little bit further up. Line 4.
Oh, here.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
So that was one of your comments, whether we could make this just prefix and not prefix underscore match, and I think that's a reasonable objection for simplicity, unless Ryan wants to.
I'm not dying on that hill.
Okay, but so it sounds to me the net of it is, it sounds like you pretty much addressed all the comments. The only outstanding major significant thing was Ryan's, which we could address later.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It was the only thing is really the Open API spec, and I'll think of carrying that over.
Yep. Okay. So even though we already had approval, just give everybody a last chance. Any objection then to merging this one so we can have a an official rough draft in the repo as opposed to in a PR? All right. Excellent. Well, thank you, Clemens, for doing that. Proprietary specs. Okay, we can close that one. Proprietary. So this was from Jim, and I don't believe he was able to make the call today. I think we actually reviewed this twice already now, but he went through some wording changes based upon some people's suggestions. I'll give you guys a chance just to quickly look it over. I don't think there's anything controversial here. This is just additional information for people who want to add their own proprietary binding. Just some guidance. So I'll give you folks a second to read that. All right. Any objection to approving this? All right. Thank you, everybody. Next, update discovery API. Mike, this is yours. Anything you want to talk about with this one?
So I see. I threatened to submit this last week after we met. So this takes the single query API and breaks it down into a more RESTful API. So there are different entities now: provider, type, and producer. They have their own paths and resource IDs and query strings for search. So I think this is a much more RESTful API. I certainly like it better. I saw Doug put a bunch of comments in last night, and I didn't feel like dealing with them last night, so I'll deal with them today. Nothing personal, just I didn't feel like working last night.
I totally get that.
And so there's that. I did open the issue about considering REST versus GraphQL, so that's a larger meta discussion to have. But as far as this goes, the TLDR is, it actually looks like a REST API now.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for doing the work on here, and I apologize for waiting until Wednesday evening to do my comments. However, I will say that it would be really nice if everybody else got a chance to review this. It disturbs me that that I was the only one that commented on there, because I'm pretty sure, given how vocal some of you guys are, that you have plenty of things to say. And I'm assuming people were just busy. So I'd rather not even think about merging this thing until at least we have evidence that other people have reviewed it. So please, when you get a chance, look it over. Yep, cool. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, but at this point, if people have done a quick scan, is there anything at the high level people would like to bring up on the call right now? Otherwise, we'll just take the reviews offline. Okay, not hearing any. Thank you again, Mike, for doing that.
Did you get the link to the GraphQL issue on the agenda? We should probably put that there.
I did not. Hold on a sec.
It's 5596. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll add that. Cool. Okay. We did that one. All right. So Clemens, while it's too new for us to actually approve this one, let me hide my comments here because I don't think they're significant. Do you want us to summarize what you did here for people?
Yes, I clarified. So this was about the key attributes, and that was deeply misleading because people were thinking that we were talking about an attribute that goes into the cloud event, but it's not. So what I'm trying to do here is to first explain a little better what's meant, and that is that first, Kafka is a store for records, a log store for records, and it's always a key value pair. And really, what we're doing is we've been focusing on the shape of the value, and that is partitioned. So I just give a brief overview of what Kafka is and does, and why key and value matter, and that this specification really is about mapping the value at the key and the header section of the Kafka message. And then, that's some context setting that I thought was missing. And then I leave the rest of the document alone because that's actually talking about the value, which is not introduced or referenced. So if anybody's not really firm with Kafka, then they might be a little confused. So that's why I've been setting the context here. And then the key mapping is, we had a bit like this partition key extractor function thing here, and that has a bit more of a formal notion to it than it was really meant. So I'm just simplifying this and say the key of the Kafka message, and so that's now really just the key that you're setting if you're sending the Kafka message via the API. That is populated by a key mapper function, and that might, and it's not further defined here. It's what that is. It's really implementation specific. It's not binding specific, as it was said in the prior text. And how you do this key mapper function doesn't matter, but there is a key mapper function. And then at the bottom I say, so that's the change 155 and onwards, that I basically mandate every implementation should provide a default key mapper implementation. Like if you don't choose anything else, then then you should provide the following that maps the partition key attribute to the key of the Kafka message as is if present. So if you're using the extension and if you're adding a partition key attribute, then the implementation should just go and pick that one up and set that as the key of the Kafka message, unless it defines another key mapper function. So the net effect of that should be that every existing implementation that is looking at the partition key and is setting that as the key in the Kafka API is doing the right thing already. And I think that's what the implementation should do. But then every implementation is free to provide a callback or whatever the mechanism is to go and take something from the message or take something from the environment, create some compute function which goes and extracts pieces from the payload, whatever else, and just generates a key and then goes and sets that as the key. That's what the abstraction, the key mapper abstraction should be. But the key point is that key is not part of the cloud event. It's really just how that's mapping into the Kafka key that is part of the Kafka message.
Okay, Francesco, your hand's up.
Yeah, so first question is, in the SDK, should we treat this change as a part of the 1.0 spec? So when I the message, should I do that in the 1.0 spec? That's the first question. Second question is partition key. After it's used as the key of the Kafka message, should be also written as an extension attribute. So it should be doubled in the message.
So this is what I think what the original intent was. So I see this as a clarification rather than a change. So the key attribute was always meant to be really the key of the Kafka message. I think that was a mistake. And because it actually never made sense for this to be a key attribute if the Kafka API doesn't know about this. So that was just I think that was just an honest mistake. And then the text at line 132 is unfortunately was wishy-washy. It should use the extension value. The only value that's defined in that spec is the partition key. And so therefore, if you're creatively reading this text, then you would figure out that the value of that extension is the value you should use for that key. And so I think my goal is to take the ambiguity out of this text, but the implementation should already populate the Kafka key from the partition key value. If it doesn't, then I would argue that's actually a bug.
Does that answer your question, Francesco?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Ryan, you sure you don't want to speak?
Yeah, I guess I just don't quite follow how this is relevant to the cloud events spec. I can see how this might be relevant to subscriptions, but like this seems like it's an implementation detail of how you would integrate with Kafka and doesn't have much to do with cloud events, unless I'm missing something.
This is the Kafka protocol binding. So we just moved on to a different bug here.
Oh, I see. Got it. Okay.
Sorry.
No, my bad. I didn't read.
No, good question.
Yes.
And just for clarification, Clemens, you dropped the UTF-8 stuff, I assume, because if that's redundant with whatever the other specs talk about in terms of how things are encoded, right?
Yeah, because yeah, I don't think it's relevant.
Okay.
You literally take the value and set that as the Kafka key.
Okay. Cool. So, Francesco, I think you were one of the people that opened up this concern to begin with. Does this PR address your concern?
Yeah, I will review it. I will take a look better. But okay. Yeah,
okay.
It solves the problem. Just are we okay with trying to have this implemented before merging it?
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
Yeah, this one was too new to merge today anyway, so I was gonna give people another week to review it. But since you were the one that raised the the original issue, I want to make sure that you're okay with it. So that's good.
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
Cool. Excellent. Okay. So everybody, please look this over, and we'll look to merge it next week, assuming that the implementation test of it actually works. And that'd be neat if we did that for all of ours, for all issues. All right. Okay. Before we jump to this issue here, the GraphQL one, just to make sure I'm not forgetting anything, are there any topics that I'm missing that are along the lines of, we need to make a decision on something? Like that, needs to be done immediately. Otherwise, we'll jump to this one. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything since we're in the free time space now. Okay. In that case, Mike, would you like to introduce this topic?
So I think a couple weeks ago, we were talking about the design for the Discovery API, and Jem had suggested that we look at GraphQL. So I did that. Went and implemented a implementation of the API. I started from knowing like nothing about GraphQL. I found it really nice to work with. I think it actually solves the problem quite elegantly because of the relationships we're trying to model here, in thinking about different ways that somebody might come at discovery and how they might want to query. So it's there to play with. Like if you click on that link, discovery in the cloud.dev, you can actually paste in some of the queries lower in the bug and kind of learn how this goes. The schema for the API is entirely in that docs tab in the UI. So right there's like where it says discovery example. So if you copy and paste those 5 lines there. It's like this is how I imagine somebody doing this. So hit the play button. Oh, got an extra word query there. All right. So like this is the, hey, what are the human readable named providers that I have available to me? So then if you go to the next query in the bug, sorry, this is really fun to direct somebody else. Sorry, that's the results from that query.
Oh, jeez.
So the next one would be like, oh, okay. So like one of the things with storage in it, that's what I'm interested in. So you're able to say, okay, give me some more details, right? So it's that same thing. I'm still asking for providers, but I'm giving it a query string. And I'm saying, okay, now expand that to the types that are available. So I can see that I've got 2 different blob storage providers that are providing the same event types. And then if you go back to the bug, one more time, I think. The next query down there is okay, I want to subscribe to events from that cloud storage provider for the, I think, create event type. What do I need? Right, and so being able to query through that. I did not tackle the subscription API. I think we would need to have a unified GraphQL schema for listing subscriptions and creating subscriptions. There is a mutate API here. Other concerns like auth and threading through identity is totally doable with the context and the way GraphQL queries are executed. So, I don't know, what questions, concerns?
Would this be
backend behind this?
So I'm using the Absinthe library for Elixir. The backend, as far as like where the data comes from, it's a bunch of arrays in memory.
Ryan, your hand's up?
Yeah, so this is awesome. Thanks for putting the example together. I think that's always helpful to see something working. I really like GraphQL, but just to play devil's advocate a little bit, I am asking myself what value it actually provides on top of just the HTTP API. And it's an important question because we're both introducing a dependency on a technology and something that lots of folks might not be familiar with. So I just want to make sure we're being judicious about what we introduce and make sure it's actually solving a problem.
That's a good question, actually. If I may add to that, in terms of interoperability, do we have concerns and what the expectations might be thereof from consumers and producers?
Mike, did you want to comment on this?
So I think, so from a consumer perspective, I've heard a lot from, like I spoke with some folks in the Google Developer Relations org, and they were actually really excited to see this because they say like their developers that they talk with really like GraphQL APIs and find them easy to work with. So from a client perspective, that's at least one data point in the positive. As far as the server libraries, so I linked into the bug all of the, the official canonical GraphQL implementations. It's in the first comment up, down, right there, graphql.org/code. So there are a variety of frameworks available in different languages for server side. It seems to cover all of the major and some minor languages. As far as like how complex this is to implement, so I literally went from knowing nothing about GraphQL to having this API designed and working in less than 5 hours. I don't know if it's the best designed GraphQL API ever, but like, it doesn't look horrible.
So, okay, so my hand's up next, and Christoph, I'll go to you. So I have similar concerns to what Ryan mentioned, which was, becoming dependent on one particular technology. Even though obviously no matter what we pick, we're dependent on something, and at least REST or HTTP seems to be one that everybody's comfortable with. And GraphQL, being dependent on that, it worries me a little from that perspective. But my question for you, Ryan, is do you see this as replacing what's in your other PR, or do you see this being an alternative to that?
Sorry, is that a question for me?
No, I'm sorry. It was a question for Mike. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes down to the interoperability goals, right? If some providers are doing a REST API and some are doing GraphQL, it's not easy to necessarily like transfer over and talk to any event provider. So I would have that as a concern. I think it's reasonable for us to pick one or the other.
Right. Okay. Christoph, your hand's up.
Yeah. Maybe I can give some insights into GraphQL usage. So I had a colleague who was at the conference where Facebook announced GraphQL, and he was instantly sold, and he hardcore pushed adoption on it. So we started using it internally, also making it public. And for the first times, we had customers interested in it, not a lot of usage. But over the last year or two, it has really been growing. And right now, I mean, we're close to a tipping point where like all projects that start implementations, like half of it roughly will use GraphQL. It's still a little bit less, but it's becoming the default for us. So I think, yeah, we are still in a place in time where we offer both for everything we do. But I think in, let's say, 2 years ahead, I could absolutely see us offering new features only in GraphQL if the adoption for us goes on like this. And yeah, as far as using the technology, for us, it's it's young technology. We don't have all the technology in place to do all the tracking. So there's some things to be relearned. But it definitely has its nice advantages also from an API provider perspective, in my opinion. Yeah, the only other comment I have is that GraphQL already has a concept of subscriptions. So whenever you say subscriptions and GraphQL, people have something or may have something in their mind already. So that's a bit of an issue for me as well. But yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Christoph. Clemens, your hand up is, I'm sorry, your hand is up next.
Yeah, so the reason why I asked what's underneath this in terms of what the backend looks like is, and the answer was there's a bunch of arrays that ultimately that data needs to come from somewhere, and GraphQL operates over a database. And what we're doing here is we'll ultimately trying to build a federation, which means I think this is great as a layer that allows you to go and navigate a space, but we need to go and get the stuff together, and we need to go and effectively create a federation of how we get that. How do we get that data into that space? How are those arrays actually populated? And so while this is a great way to go and navigate the graph, you have to go and assemble the graph first. So I think the discovery and publishing mechanism that we need to define here, and also the subscription mechanism needs to allow a publisher, someone who produces events, to make those known. It also needs to be able to go and have effectively let them go and produce a simple list of events that they're publishing, and have that retrievable. And then similarly for subscription, ultimately you need to go and walk up to a particular party and say, this is the subscription I want to go and set up, and then this is the subscription I want to go and create. Those are ultimately very simple CRUD operations, that are at the edges of all of this. And in the middle of this might be a pool, a graph that you may want to go and manipulate and query, et cetera, et cetera. But I think of that as a layer that sits on top of this. I would find it a little strange if a small device that is simply wants to go and publish 3 events is required to take a hard dependency on a complexity, on a layer of the complexity of GraphQL, just to make known that it publishes 3 events, and to have an external party go and set up a request, something that can be done with a very simple HTTP post request. Ultimately, and ultimately, this is not, I find it a little strange to portray this as REST versus GraphQL, because GraphQL is obviously uses all the foundations that are sitting on at the bottom of HTTP. It's just layering something on top of it. So I think this is great as a layer to kind of make the discoverability allow more criteria. But I think we still need to have some primitives at the bottom that are enabling the federation.
Okay, thank you, Clemens. Sergey, I think your hand's up next.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention 2 things that, given that GraphQL is a query language, first of all, it's actually, or you don't need a client SDK to make GraphQL calls. You can simply send them as post requests and parse the response as JSON, which is another great thing about GraphQL compared to some other query languages like, in a way, gRPC or protobuf RPC and others. And I also wanted to maybe question the statement that GraphQL requires a database behind the GraphQL source, because usually, or it's not a requirement, and you can run GraphQL on top of some data or some response. It can also be some other service call or something. But I don't feel that database is a good requirement for GraphQL or for something behind GraphQL.
Okay, thank you. Christoph, I assume your hand is old, right?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Okay, cool, so sure. Any other questions? Okay, I then have a follow-on question. I think it's for Clemens. Is the net of what you were suggesting there is that the base specification define, forgive me for using this phrase, more a traditional REST API kind of query thing to get back to simple lists, but then have a layer on top of there that optionally supports GraphQL?
Yeah, I think we need to. I think we need to have a simple CRUD API that also allows you to get lists of things that is simple to implement for everybody, because GraphQL clearly isn't simple to implement for everybody, and if it's only for constraints in terms of how much load you can take on for dependencies, right? Because GraphQL is easy to use, but it's certainly not a trivial dependency to take on. And so that's something that I'm worried about. I'm worried about that from a base spec perspective, about having too much weight in terms of a dependency that you have to implement to be conformant with the specification. And then there's certainly the luxury of having a powerful query language is something that has great value. And I think that's a layer that we can certainly go and put on top specifically for the discovery API. But I think that the way how a publisher makes known what events it has and how that information gets effectively propagated through a system, I think that part needs to be simpler. And that should not be dependent on a particular form of query.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Appreciate that. Okay, so we're running a little low on time here. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Yeah,
before
I just want to address this. I think the database argument is an invalid one. To build the REST API, you have the same issue, right? The data has to live somewhere. Either I'm implementing, some kind of SQL query or some kind of NoSQL fetch to find out sources that I have. The difference is, like, am I implementing the HTTP handler, or am I getting a callback from a resolve function? So there's I don't think that's a valid argument. You have the same thing to implement in both systems. As far as making events known, we actually haven't addressed that yet in discovery at all. So we haven't talked about how might an IoT device make itself known. If that's something we think we should explore.
I would assume that if you allow discovery, then you also need to figure out how to populate the discovery database. I mean, I mean database really in the conceptual functional sense of it. I don't think of it as an installed thing, but you walk up to Discovery Service, and the Discovery Service has some data that it operates on. How that's held doesn't matter, but ultimately, if you have parties which are raising events, we want to make those discoverable. So those need to contribute something into the pool that provides the discovery service, and that flow is obviously also important. I mean, I think from an interoperability perspective, that might actually be the most important part of it. Because we can have 400 ways of how to do discovery, and I might want to go discovery using a SQL dialect or GraphQL or whatever. But I think from an interoperability perspective, what's most important is that I have a device, or I have someone who has a subscription manager implementation and offers events up for subscription. How does that party make itself known to a service which provides discovery? So if we don't have that, then we certainly need that.
Yeah, we don't have that yet.
Okay. Any other comments on this before we try to wrap things up? Okay. So in terms of process, I'm sorry, were you going to say something else?
Yeah, maybe it's, for me, GraphQL is another language on top. So it's just the filters or whatever, or not a filter, but a language on top. Like all the features and concepts and semantics behind it are independent of it. And you have to have them both for GraphQL and REST and whatever. Like if you talk about something English or Spanish or German, doesn't matter. Like the concepts below it, they are independent of the language. And I feel the same is true for REST and GraphQL. Everything that Clemens is saying is correct, but I don't see how it similarly applies to REST. That's my comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, I think we're going to call time. However, obviously, we're not going to resolve this today. I think it's going to be a big discussion. So please, everybody, if you get a chance, comment on the PR itself, or there's an issue. Yeah, sorry. Comment on the issue itself so we can get some discussions going offline there. Obviously, I think this has to come back up again, so I'm sure we'll revisit it next week or in future calls. But it does sound like it's a very important decision point for us going forward. So we'll have to come to some sort of resolution. So the more commentary you guys make, the quicker we'll go, I believe. Okay. And with that, before we do the final agenda check, is there any other topic people would like to bring up on the call today, if it's a quick one? Okay. The other Doug, you there?
Here.
Excellent. Did I miss anybody else for the agenda? I think I got everybody. Does anybody not see their name on this list? All right. In that case, I believe we are done for today. Thank you, everybody. A lot of good progress. And just a reminder, we do have the SDK call starting right after this. So in about a minute or two, we'll kick that off. Everybody else, you're free to go. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Hey, Doug, I can't make the SDK call.
Okay. Thanks, Mark.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Oops. You guys can't escape.
Oh, great. So you have me down so I can leave now.
Well, we don't actually take real attendance. This is just because I'm bored. But yeah. Let's see. What was I doing? Somebody.
I didn't expect this call to take that long, so I'm.
Yeah, I don't know whether I'm happy or just surprised, but yeah, that call was longer than I expected too. But this one might be very quick. I don't know if you guys have any agenda items.
Oh, do we?
Oh, yeah. Maybe you shouldn't go.
His name is Sir.
Say it again?
Yes. Yeah, Francesco, aka Srinslink. No, it's my official name everywhere.
Yeah, but did I spell that right? Francesco?
This time, yes.
This time. Hey, I never claimed I was a good speller.
No. The correct spelling in Italian is Francesco. You say more like Spanish, more like Francisco.
Okay, I'm convinced I'm saying it wrong. I'm not even questioning that. I was just wondering whether I spelled it right. So, okay. Yeah. I feel like I'm missing somebody on this list. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Okay, somebody dropped. Okay. With that, why don't we go and get started? So Scott, since you made a giggle noise earlier, do you have any topics?
Well, I just have we have a status update on the SDK for Go is all.
Okay. Go for it.
Yeah, we've released several previews of the V2 API, and I think preview 8 is fairly close to what we're going to ship. And so I think in the next week or so, we're going to make an RC1. We've decided that the client API it returns something always, and that thing can be tested to be an ACK or NAC. That kind of makes sense for transactional sends and receives and requests and stuff. So we're still testing integration inside of Knative to make sure the SDK does things that a real production-ready integration would do. But it's looking pretty good.
Excellent.
And I was looking at metrics. Let's see here. We've had
tracing or metrics.
No, I was looking at the traffic on that repository, and we've had 125,000 clones in its lifetime now.
Say that again. How many?
125,000 clones.
That's freaking incredible.
We're getting 5K unique cloners a day in the last several days.
That's just amazing.
So I think we've been a part of some very big CI/CD system.
Well, I can understand like fetches or something, but actual clones. Oh no, I guess clones. No, yeah, you would do that every time you run a CI/CD. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
it's just the Knative automation.
It could be. Well, I don't think we do 5,000 builds a day in Knative.
Okay, never mind. It's not quite as impressive anymore. I take that back.
I was sure you didn't about like a farm, a Git clone farm.
My mechanical Turk is working.
Somebody wrote a Knative function or service to do it. Yes, with the cron service.
You know, we're also getting about it looks like about average of about maybe 30 or 40 unique visitors a day.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and you know, this only tells me it only tells me the history of the last like couple weeks, 10 days. So I can't see, but anyway, looks like there's some adoption happening. We're getting close to shipping an RC1. Wow, we added PubSub back in, so PubSub's back. Shipping that. Kafka's in.
Scott.
Yeah. Nat's streaming, I think, is in.
Yeah, it's in.
Yeah, so like we're really doing it.
Exciting. Does Nats have 2 S's or 1? I can't remember.
Nat's streaming has 2. Nats has 1.
Okay, got it. Okay, cool. Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're past the advertisement stage. from our sponsor. Are there any other topics you want to bring up?
Yeah, me.
Me. Yes.
So
Go for it.
as I said, like 2 months ago, I'm struggling working with the SDK Java, and I started sketching some changes, and I really wish to discuss with who maintains the Java SDK. So I explained my point. I put the link on in future topics. So, well, if anybody is interested to discuss about it, or at least if we can find who should discuss about it with me, I'll be really happy to have this kind of discussion. I explain what, in my opinion, is wrong now and how I try to fix it. But this is like a rework of a good part of the SDK, so it's a big rework. So
have you pinged Fabio through Slack?
Tried.
Okay, I'll try to ping him too. I assume when you say tried, you mean he did not respond?
No, he didn't respond.
Okay, I'll ping him. He might just be busy, and sometimes it's hard to get his attention. So I'll ping him and try to wake him up a little. But Dustin, your hands up.
Yeah, I'd be interested in talking about this because I posted a similar issue on the Python SDK. And I think just looking at this now, some of the issues that I had with the current status of the Python SDK were kind of similar as well. And so I was just generally curious about also maintenance of the Python SDK. It doesn't have 0.3 or 1.0 versions of the spec yet either. Although I think, yeah, you've made a PR for it? Yeah.
Python wasn't the one that we decided to basically almost drop. No, it wasn't. Okay, good. So these pull requests on Python, are they being looked at by people? Huh, I have one too. So who, I can't remember, who owns this one? Dennis. Does anybody know if Dennis is like working on this stuff? Does anybody know him? Okay, maybe I'll try to reach out and see what's up. But on the Java one, yeah, I'll ping Fabio, try to get his attention. Anything else? Any other topics?
Just a general question. What should we do if some SDK goes, I don't want to say unmaintained, but you know, you can't reach the contributor, and this SDK is useful because, you know, Java is popular language, so having this unmaintained or just a little bit not in a good shape, or should we do?
Yeah, so this is something we've never actually talked about. So obviously I think we need to discuss this. So let's take it as an example, just to pick on the Java one. Let's say Fabio, for some reason, decides he doesn't care anymore and he just vanishes. Obviously, we can make anybody we want to be maintainer. From my perspective, my only concern would be that it would have to be somebody that we know is there and has the best interest of that project at heart, right? I wouldn't want some random person who just shows up one day and say, hey, Fabio's vanished, here's a PR, can you merge it for me? And we just blindly merge it, right? We need somebody who we actually have some faith in and some experience with. So in your particular case, Francesco, even without reviewing the PR, I would trust your judgment based upon your current workings in the Go SDK to say, yeah, you're probably making the right choices and you can become the new leader of that project. But it's not always going to be that clear, I fear, right?
No, wait. I didn't say that I want to become the leader of the project.
No, I know.
No, really, I just want to make this project because I need it. So
but it's all in the same vein, right? Because if the current maintainers of a project are either too busy to do something, we need some way to address that problem because these PRs should not linger forever. I don't know, I'm open to ideas here in terms of how to move forward here. We may just need to deal with it on a case-by-case basis. In the Java particular case, say if Fabio is just too busy to look at PRs and to comment on the one that you just opened, maybe it's a matter of, okay, you are technically a maintainer because everybody is a maintainer on all the SDKs and you can merge your own PRs. and just for you because you are a maintainer.
Yeah, but then I can't, for example, publish the Maven packages because I don't have the rights. And and I could say the same for the SDK Rust. For the SDK Rust, I am the one that owns the rights to publish the packages. So if at some point I vanish,
yeah.
Well, it sounds like a requirement for an SDK needs to be more than one person with permission to publish the packages.
or maybe just the cloud events. The people that maintains cloud events SDK working group or whatever. I mean, there should be some people that has the rights for all the SDKs, in my opinion.
Like a SDK committee.
Yeah, so that actually plays into the point that I raised 2 weeks ago. You remember the about the signing, which I haven't solved yet, also because I was sick. But I raised the point about the code signing, which is a .NET particular issue. But the question there is, what does the release pipeline look like? Because I think ultimately, if we're having a loose federation here of folks who are working on a bunch of SDKs, but ultimately the deliverables that we have are binaries, then we need to have a neutral pipeline that just does the publishing in a documented way.
But this is too hard to abstract over the several languages. Like, I mean, for Go, we don't even need a pipeline. It's just a release button on GitHub. While for Rust, it's a crate, it's some stuff with cargo.
Why don't we look at GitHub Actions? Because GitHub Actions allows you to have private keys stored inside the project, and we could have a little builder thing that does the publishing for us when a Git release is done.
Yeah, I think that would be great. So we need to have a place where we can store secrets. And those secrets need to be accessible by authorized people.
Yeah.
And those
GitHub
authorized
does
people
that
change,
now.
right?
So you can have private secrets inside of your GitHub project that aren't public to the community, but they're at a certain maintainer. But they're also accessible by the images that run in the GitHub Actions.
Yeah, so I think that's a solution path.
Okay, I'm going to continue looking at that because I'm doing GitHub Actions for something else that I'm working on. So possibly we could kind of apply your project, the new bar is your project needs to have some sort of release automation if it's more complicated than just pushing the release button in GitHub.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Scott, if it can help you, SDK Rust uses GitHub Actions as CI. So for running the test, building, so it already does it. So I just need to add the hook for doing the publishing, but.
Sounds like a great option. Thanks, Scott. Okay,
yeah,
so
I was just reading about that today. So I was like, oh, this looks really interesting.
Yeah. So, but let's circle back around to the other question that was being raised, which was, what do we do if the current maintainers of an SDK are too busy for at least for a while? Any ideas, any suggestions? Do we just need to wait and play it by ear for each case?
Let's do an audit committee. Not saying that we're going to do any actions, but like go and flag the repositories that we host that aren't up to V1 and mark them as like you're in trouble here. You need to be updated or you're going to be archived. And the threat of archiving could encourage someone to step up and update it.
Yeah, if people look at the GitHub project and not just pull a package.
Okay, I kind of like that idea. Anybody else?
Threat.
Oh, geez. Thank you. See, this is why I shouldn't share my screen. Holy crap.
What about,
I find it impossible to write a sentence that has the word contains in it without my fingers writing container. So anyway, side note.
Not a good sign.
I think another thing we should do is we should claim that all SDK has support for 0.3 and 1.2. I mean, like an art. What's the word? Like an art requirement.
For new SDKs to support 0.3.
Sorry.
I don't think we should require brand new SDKs to support 0.3.
Oh, that's
I
something.
Didn't we just make a rule that said you must support 1.0, but we recommend 0.3? I think.
Yeah. So we recommend at least one back, and one major one back, but the 0.3 was considered like the zero major.
Was it recommended to support 0.3 or required to support 0.3?
It's recommended.
Okay, that's what I thought. Well, I think we already have that in our SDK.md file, right?
Yeah.
So that it's more a question of enforce it. Okay.
Dustin's mentioning an SLA on issues in GitHub.
And do what though if they're not being met?
well, I mean, just use that as a metric for considering the repository unmaintained or.
Oh, I see what you mean. Good point. Still can't get it. Okay.
If I can do a comment on this, this is kind of hard to say because it really depends on the kind of on the language. Like for example, if an SDK supports only JSON, the JSON part of the spec, and supports only the HTTP part of the spec, and maybe the language itself has implementation for JSON and HTTP. An example is Golang.
I would call that SDK not complete.
Apart that, but I would say that the code could live there and stay there because it just works even with the new versions of the language. While, for example, for Java, if you don't update Jackson, you get CV every day. So I don't understand. I don't know if you get what I mean, but this course slide really depends on the language, on the SDK itself. Like for example, for a Java package, for a Java module, if you have Jackson as dependency, you should be behind every week and have updates every 2 or 3 weeks.
Right. So it seems to be from a process perspective, the first step would be to write down the list of requirements for SDKs beyond what we already have, and the threats that go along with not meeting those requirements, and for us to get agreement on what that write-up is, and basically agree to that contract in essence. And then once we agree to that, then we can go look at every single SDK and apply that list to that periodic review, and kick off a periodic review of every single SDK. And if some of them aren't meeting those things, then we send threatening letters, conceptually.
Yeah, and you can have a table that shows your, compliance code or whatever. Your, little, like a big table of check boxes that says like, this is what you can and can't do with this SDK.
Yeah, well, but ultimately, even beyond that, if they if they get the threatening letter, they take no action to fix it, then I think we do what you were saying earlier, Scott, which is, okay, they get archived, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing this for the health of the adoption of cloud events, not to like try to be some sort of dictatorship.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to support to advertise that we have this SDK that it doesn't really work with anything else, or it's not to the latest version of the spec.
Right. Yeah, because well, it's kind of like, you know, I don't know if it's a good or bad example, but the Apple Store, right? While some people may call them dictators, they're trying to make sure that people don't get a bad experience, because even if it's the app's fault, Apple looks bad because they're the platform. And I think Cloud Events is the platform here in the sense, right? We don't want an SDK out there that makes us look bad.
Yeah, it's a dead, rusty car in our lawn.
Right, exactly. Okay. Okay, so I'll take the action item to come up with a rough draft of the list of requirements, rules, charter, whatever, guidelines or reviews, whatever you want to call it, and then you guys can review it. And then Scott, you took the action item for the GitHub action stuff, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I'll look into that.
Okay. Any other topics you guys want to bring up? All right. I believe we're then done for the day. Thank you, everybody.
Have a great
Talk
week.
again next. Bye.
See ya.
See ya.